Peter Buswell here for DrVoIP.com. We've been an Amazon service delivery partner since 2019, so please don't hesitate to contact us, Dr. VoIP at DrVoIP.com. You can give us a call, you can chat with us through the website. We're always eager to help you with your Amazon Connect call center issues or your Amazon Web Service migration solutions. Anything to do with AWS Cloud, we can help you. In this video, we're going to take a look at some advanced callback strategies, and we're going to couple this with the ability to directly dial an agent. Now, some call centers don't want you to be able to call a particular agent, but in this scenario, we will prompt the caller for the extension number of the agent they're trying to reach. And we will also provide some options. If that agent is on the phone, we'll enable a callback option, a voicemail option, or transfer to someone else. So the call flow scenario we want to take a look at is kind of interesting, especially if you understand AWS's callback process. So let's take a scenario. The scenario is I have a call center and it opens at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And throughout the day, it follows the sun across the country with another agent group, let's say in California. So we're open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and we have staff in both time zones. This problem or the challenge is that what happens if it's 5 o'clock Monday, someone calls in and leaves a callback request. That callback request is put in the callback queue. But let's assume it's not handled by the end of the day. The first person that logs in the next morning is going to get that callback. Now, that itself is not necessarily bad, but what happens if the number that the callback request came from is in Palo Alto, California? Well, if it's 7 a.m. in Eastern Standard Time, that callback to that person in California is going to be made 4 a.m. in the morning. So we need to have a way to control when the callbacks take place. So we don't want to call California until it's at least 10 a.m. in California. And as I said, in this example, we will use direct dialing to an extension, and we'll give the extension the option for connect, callback, leave a voicemail, or transfer to someone else. The callback strategy itself, again, will have direct dial to an agent. Now, in the default callback contact flow, it's pretty simple. We ask them to input their number, we set the callback number, we thank them, we transfer to queue, and we hang up. Now, that call is in the callback queue, and there's nothing you can do about it. Once you put it in that queue, you can't change its status. And when there's an available agent, regardless if it's 7 a.m. in the morning or not, as soon as an agent is available, that callback attempt will be made. So one of the things we want to do here, first of all, is don't put the call in the callback queue. Let's not do that. Let's write that callback request to a DynamoDB table, write a Lambda function that will check that table first to see if the person requesting the callback has already made a request. You know that people call in, request a callback, then call back again, request a callback. Let's check to see if that already exists. And then the second thing we want to do is to look at the area code of that callback number so that we can look for time zone matching. Uh, and at that point, when we finally find something that fits the profile being defined as we'll do callback during these certain hours based on area code. We will now take that caller out of the DynamoDB table and put them in the callback queue. So the takeaway there is don't put people in the callback queue unless you understand the ramifications of that. If you want to operate on that phone number before you put it in queue, you need to put it someplace like a DynamoDB table. We'll also talk a little bit about aging priority of a call. When a call comes into your contact center, it initially has a priority value of 5. If you want to, you can percolate that priority to a higher priority, which by the way is a lower number. So priority 1 calls are higher than priority 5 calls. And you can do that, by the way, over a period of time. So if someone comes into the system, they're priority 5, and you can say, please increase their priority by 1 for every 3 minutes in queue. Now, I know we all say that customers are created equal, but we all know that there's platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. And so when calls come in from the platinum folks, we want to give them a higher priority. But at the same time, we don't want some poor bronze person sitting there forever, never getting handled because there's so many platinum people. So we can age priority increase that bronze caller based on time in queue such that they ultimately will percolate up to the top and finally get serviced. So let's take an overview snapshot here. We're going to look at a personal queue. And it's important for everybody to understand when a phone call comes into an Amazon Connect call center, there's actually two contact flows launched. The main contact flow that you associated with that telephone number. And then there is always a queue hold flow. If you don't specify one, Amazon Connect is going to use the default queue hold flow that you'll see in your contact flows. So all of those defaults are used whenever required, and you didn't specify an alternative. Why? Because we need some place to put that caller while we are looking for an agent. Even if our agents are available, it's going to take maybe 20 seconds or so to find that agent, have them connect, and so forth. When they when they are sitting in queue for at least 20 seconds. So sometimes in the queue holdback flow, I like to play ring back as the first audio tone rather than the usual care messages that someone might hear. But the takeaway is that every main CSQ attached to a phone typically has a queue hold flow that goes along with it. The customer's in this main flow, but the queue hold flow dictates the experience they're having while they're waiting for an agent. We're also going to enable uh, agents to have extension numbers. This is a simple solution. We can make it a bit easier to administer by creating a Lex bot, which will use speech recognition. So rather than asking for an extension number, you can say, speak the name of the agent you're trying to reach, and then convert the name through Lex to an extension number. And from the extension number, get the agent ID and transfer the call to the agent ID. What's implied there is that every agent actually has a personal queue. You just can't easily see it, but it's there. Uh, we're also going to work with modules. So a module is a special contact flow that is basically a subflow. So, for example, callbacks. We may use callbacks many places throughout our call center, and rather than cutting and pasting it or referencing the same um, contact flow that contains the callback, what we might do is to create a module that you will call uh, when you want to run that particular subflow. In this example, we're going to use callback as a subflow in a module. You should understand that it's not available in the whole flow. So if you're trying to set up a queue whole flow, you need to understand that you might not be able to specify a module. If you look, there's a big difference between the options available to the different types of contact flows you will find in your Amazon Connect instance. So callback options, we're going to note the current customer's number. So when they called in, we grab their number or their caller ID, if you will. We'll ask them, do you want us to call you back at that number or do you want another number? And then we'll collect that number. We also need to address the fact that sometimes if they leave a number that is the main number at the company that you're calling back, you may in fact get an IVR or a human receptionist, in which case you need to be able to tell that person who left the callback request. And so we can either prompt the caller to for a name or an extension number and then make that available to the person who answers the callback. We also want to check to see if a callback request already exists. Again, folks have a tendency to be impatient, so they call into the system, they leave a callback request, call back 5 minutes later, try to do the same thing. We need to capture that. We need to go check. And if you're following along, we're not going to put the callback in the queue. We're going to put it in a DynamoDB table. And when they request a callback, we're going to go to that table and check and see if that number is already there. We also only want to offer callback through by certain hours, and we want to check the area code before we place the callback to map the area code to a time zone. So offering callbacks by hours deals with the fact that, maybe if your call center is open from, 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening, you want to stop offering a callback option to folks at a certain time towards the end of the day. Maybe we stop at 4 o'clock so that we don't collect a lot of callbacks that we're not going to be able to respond to that day. We will be using DynamoDB tables and Lambda functions. There'll be a Lambda function that will go get the agent ID from a DynamoDB database based on their extension number. We also need some Lambda functions to read and write to that same DynamoDB table if we want to avoid multiple callbacks. We have a area code time zone lookup, and that's all going to be in at least two databases. One, the agent database that contains the names and the agent's unique ID, and we'll also have the callback table. So let's go forward and look at the actual contact flows that we're going to use in this scenario. Okay, we have a contact flow that we've created called personal queue with callback DTMF. There's another one that says personal queue with callback Lex. So I generally prefer to use speech recognition to get the agent name and look up the extension. If I use, the prompt and collect digits to get an extension number, then someone has to maintain an extension number list and constantly administer that. If we do it with speech recognition, we don't have to publish the extension numbers. So what happens here is the phone number is going to be tied to this call. And keep in mind, this is to enable direct call to an agent. So the first thing we do is set the logging behavior. Very important for troubleshooting. If you want to save a few bucks downstream, you can turn this off after you've got everything debugged. We're going to set the priority of this call. Now, one of the challenges in the callback scenario is that if an agent has to be available to get the call back. And if the agent becomes available, they might get another phone call from a different queue. So what we want to do is make sure that they handle the priority one call first. So we're going to immediately set this call to priority one. We're going to set the customer queue flow. And as I pointed out earlier, every contact flow typically has a customer queue flow that dictates the experience the caller should have while they're waiting to connect to an agent. And everybody, every call, even if an agent is available, is going to spend some small amount of time in this queue. If there's an available agent, we got to go find that agent. We got to get them connected, whisper in their ear, and then connect the caller. And that takes some number of seconds. So during that period of time, the person will be in this customer queue flow. Now, if they also happen, all the agents are tied up, they're going to sit there for some period of time. And again, this describes the experience that they're going to have, the care messages they're going to receive, and the options that they might have for bailout. This point, I'm using a store customer input rather than get customer input. The difference being is if you use get customer input, you can only input a single digit. Here, I want to prompt them to enter the extension number of the individual that they're trying to reach. We're going to set that as a contact attribute. We're going to set it to a user-defined parameter called extension number. Then here we're going to check that extension number to see if it's 0, in which case we've prompted them, if you know your extension number, put it in. If not, press 0, and we'll route you to the next available agent. So if they press 0 here, we're going to send them off to a working queue where someone else can help them. If not, we're going to set the contact attributes again to be an extension number. What we're looking to do here is make sure that every call comes in gets an extension number, even if the caller didn't know it. So there's a default call being set here. That extension number that hits this Lambda function, which is going to use that extension number to get the agent ID. We pull back any number of attributes. Some of them are the agent ID and the agent name. That agent ID, it's like a 32 character GUID, unique for every agent, and every agent has one, and that's their personal queue. So if we're successful there, the next thing we're going to do is check contact attributes here. We're going to check to see that we do in fact have a name. And if there's no match, meaning that we've got a name, what we're going to do here is go check the availability. Now, what we're doing here is checking to see if the person that they're trying to reach is available. It's not on another phone call. If they are, we go ahead and transfer the call to them. This Lambda function works with an agent desktop, Dexter, and it enables us to display that there's a caller in queue, and then we transfer the caller to a queue and we're done. But what happens if the check staffing fails? Then we may want to offer some options. But keep in mind, we don't want to offer callback unless it falls within certain hours. So we created a check hours operation here, and we've got business hours set called callback hours. And if it's between, let's say, 10 and 5, we go this way. If it's not, we go this way. Let's go down the path that says it's during business hours. And here we've basically got a prompt that says, we got the agent's name, so we can say, Peter's on the phone. If you would prefer to receive a call back when your agent is available, press 1. Press 2 to wait. for Peter or hold for the next available agent. So what we're going to do there is if they elect to have a callback, we send them to the callback module. The only difference here is that we remove the callback option. The only option they have is to leave a message or continue to hold. If they want to continue to the hold, we just transfer them to queue. In which case, if that agent, as soon as they hang up, they're going to be eligible to receive another inbound call. And since this is a high priority call, they will get this call from the callback queue. So let's look at this Invoke Module. So that's a new recent function in Amazon Connect. And I think the best way to show that to you is to, I've done another video on this subject, and you can look at that, but let's go to contact flows, and you'll see here it says contact flows, and it's got a separate tab for modules. Now I've already created a module called call return. So back here, what we're doing is we're invoking the callback module. Now I got to put all of that code in here, but it's just a little easier to do it as a subflow. So we're going to invoke the module. We'll go to the module, and basically what we're doing here is we're taking their existing phone number, so customer number, that's a system parameter, and we're assigning it to an attribute we created called callback number. Then what we're going to do is, in this case, we're running a function to go read the DynamoDB data table to see if this number has already been put in that table. If it has, we're going to tell them, hey, you already have a callback. No need to request it again. Be patient. We'll give you a call back, right? So if that's true, that's basically what this leg does. It just takes them off and says, hey, you already have a callback. Uh, please be patient. And then I always like to set in my contact flows, my subflows or modules, a Boolean value to indicate whether the call to the subflow was successful or not. And in this case, we're setting it to success, and this is a return. The return is going to bring us back to the calling contact flow. And with this Boolean value here. So let's assume that they're not in that. What we do here is we want to ask them if, do you want us to call? We noticed you're calling from 1-800-946-6127. Should we call you back at that? And they say, yes, we're done. They say no. Then what we want to do is create a new number and then add that number to the transfer queue or set the contact attributes and write it to the DB database table. There's also an option in here to, let's see, here we go. Okay, we want to make sure that the phone number started with plus, and we've got some error correction here to handle that eventuality. And then what's going to happen is this is going to be returned back to the contact flow that called it. So when we come back here, we're going to be right here. And what we've done here is I'm just checking to see if the call, the Boolean for successfully passing or failing was done. So in this case, if it's passed, we thank them and let them know that in this case, the agent name, or in this case, Peter, will return this call just as soon as possible. That call is now in Peter's personal queue or in the database. That we'll put it in Peter's queue, and then we disconnect. If it failed for some reason, we tell them you failed and we send them, we set a working queue and transfer them off to that working queue. So this is a contact flow that combines personal agent access with several different callback strategies, and it uses modules and priorities as well as Lambda functions and DynamoDB tables to achieve the desired result of not calling people in California at 4 in the morning when it's 7 a.m. in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. Also, we don't put people in the callback queue unless we're prepared to deal with that consequence. It is better to write it to the DynamoDB table and write another function to check it, uh, a daemon to check it, and just compare to see if it's time to do callbacks. So that concludes this overview. I hope you found this somewhat informative. Please hit Dr. VoIP at drvoip.com up with questions. We're more than happy to help. Peter Buswell here for DrVoIP.com. We've been an Amazon service delivery partner since 2019, so please don't hesitate to contact us, Dr. VoIP at drvoip.com. You can give us a call, you can chat with us through the website. We're always eager to help you with your Amazon Connect call center issues or your Amazon Web Service migration solutions. Anything to do with AWS Cloud, we can help you.